Hello, I'm Richard with EV4U, and in this video series we're going to focus on a beginner's guide to DIY off-grid power. And what we mean by that is a setup that you can do yourself that will provide both AC and DC power off-grid for camping, RVs, a cabin, whatever. An off-grid remote scenario where you need power to run a variety of items, whether they be alternating current or DC current powered. We're going to go over all that. Kind of the main talking points will be how to determine your power needs. That's one of the things that I see the most, is that people are asking others, well, how many batteries do I need to run this or that? They don't know. Only you can know. And the only way that you can know is you're going to have to do a little bit of, investigating, a little bit of brain work. But we're going to walk you through exactly how to do that. And there's different possibilities of information provided by the different items that require power, and we will show you how to figure out the power requirements regardless of the information provided. And then, how are you going to power these things in a remote situation? Well, battery power. And the batteries can work in conjunction with some other source, whether it be solar, hydroelectric, wind, whatever it might be you have on your property or your location, or if you want it to be mobile. If you're mobile, then most likely it's going to be wind or solar. But we'll talk about how much of this power, or a generator, could be, generator, gasoline or gas, propane powered generator, whatever it is, what capacity do you need to charge those batteries to provide for those power needs? And this is all interrelated. And so we're going to talk about what you need to know to calculate those things. You just can't pull these answers out of thin air, and nobody else can for you. They can give you a rough idea or a guesstimate, but you'll save money and hassle if you know the big picture yourself. Okay? It's really very simple. You just need to have that formula presented to you. And then we'll give you real world examples of what we're talking about, and we'll answer your questions so that we will make this, tailored, not just, the fundamentals and the big picture, but also specific questions will be dealt with. But I think, this is not my first rodeo. So I think that we'll present enough that there won't be too many of these. But if there are, we're going to be happy to take care of you. So, in this first episode, we're going to talk about how to determine our power needs. And this will be, like I said, a series. I don't know how many total episodes there's going to be. It'll probably be determined by the number of questions. And if we have a lot of questions, we may have episodes that are specifically dealing with responding to those questions. But anyway, without any further ado, let's get into how to determine your power needs for off-grid power situations. Okay, so here we've got some items that, for example, that we need to be powered. Okay, so again, your situation will differ from everybody else's possibly. So you need to, list the items that you need to power. Here's just some things that I have in my travel trailer. Lights, fans, water pump, refrigerator, heater, air conditioning, the inverter, water heater, laptop, phone, and there's several more things if you stop and think about it. But this is just for example. So remember, we want to figure, the goal is to come up with the watt hours. That's the capacity that we'll need to provide. And so we're going to do it on a daily basis. So we're going to figure the power, how long we require that power, and the total per day, per 24 hours. Okay, so lights. So again, they'll list it, or somewhere you can find that information of what the power consumption is. And I happen to know that the lights that I'm using, and I have multiples, but per light, it's 7.5 watts. So now I'd have to say, how many lights am I going to run and for how long? So let's say that I run 2 lights for 2 hours a day. So 2 lights would be 15 watts times 2 hours. There's a little 2 hours here. So that would give us 15 times 2, right? So that would be 30 watt hours per day. The fans. I've got 2 of them. They draw 11.5 each. Let's go with the same time frame. Let's say that I run 2 of them, and again, a total of 2 hours, and so that would be 2 would be 23 times 2, 46 watt hours per day. Okay, you getting the idea? The refrigerator, and actually I have a refrigerator and freezer, and so they're going to, at the most use 60 watts, but for how long? So let's just, if you don't have any history, if you don't have a track record, you don't have something to quantify that with, you're going to have to do some guesstimating. And at this point in your energy consumption, you want to guess high so that when you provide for that higher number, you come out ahead, not behind. So let's say that the refrigerator runs half the time. The other part of the time, the compressor's off. So if my refrigerator, when the compressor's running, draws 60 watts, and say its cycle time is half the time it's running, half the time it's not, so 12 hours per day, that would be 720 watt hours per day of energy that my refrigerator would be using. And in my case, I have a refrigerator and freezer, so I could just double that. The heater. Say you run the heater for an hour in the morning. So you've got 1 hour run time. That would be 540 watts per day. Air conditioning. Say you run it 4 hours per night. That would be 1980 watt hours. Okay, the water heater. It runs less than an hour a day, but we'll just put 1 hour. So that's 1600 watt hours per day. Now my laptop, I didn't see anything that said how many watts, which is perfect because I wanted to be able to use the example of if you don't have the watts provided, you can figure, okay? All you need is volts and amps. So in this case, the charger for it says that it pulls 0.17 amps at 110 volts. And watts, remember, is volts times amps. So we're going to take the volts, 110 volts times 0.17 amps. That tells us that it's going to use 18.7 watts. And how many hours a day am I going to use the laptop? Let's say, times 4. So that's less than 80. I'll just say 80 watt hours. Okay? So now you get the idea. So then once you get to that, we would total it up. And so let me total that up and be right back. What other items on your list, you would figure them out, and you get the idea. So based on this example, we need 4,996 watt hours per day. So 5,000 watt hours per day. Commonly expressed, we would say that we're using 5 kilowatt hours per day. Kilo equals 1,000. So we're using 5,000 watt hours per day. So in our next episode, we'll talk about what we need to provide for that kind of energy. And regardless of what your number comes out to be, you want to be able to meet that, okay? And that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about, again, it's going to be energy over time when we sit down to figure out how many batteries we need. And so, again, it'll be a whole episode by itself because it's not just cut and dry. There are considerations. There's battery types. There's different voltages, so forth. And we're going to talk about that in our next video. So I hope you'll join me. I hope you subscribe. I hope you're getting something out of these. And if you have any questions, remember down there on the other side of this, put them in the comments below and we'll save up those questions and we'll do an episode, or maybe I'll just add it to an episode, depends on the question and how lengthy the response, so forth. But anyway, or it might be covered in an episode, as just the course of things being covered. So anyway, I hope this is clear. The number one thing you need to do in this beginner's guide for a do-it-yourself off-road power, off-grid, you can tell I'm a long-time off-roader, used to saying the word, off-grid power, is you need to figure out what your needs are. What is my consumption? How much power do I need to provide? And the only way to do that is to go through based on the items that you are actually going to use. Not on what somebody else is using, but what you are using. And you either want to know the current and the voltage. So this is an AC item. My laptop plugs into the inverter. So That's why I rounded this up 4 hours, you know, because there's going to be a little bit of inefficiency in that inverter. The inverter at idle, when there's no load on it, it uses, and we skipped over that one, it uses 32 watts. I don't have that on all the time. It's usually on in the evening and it's on in the morning. You know, we'll use the microwave, the toaster, you know, the hair dryer, curling iron, whatever. I don't use those things, of course, but you know, the water heater, things like that are used at those times of day. And so we have the inverter on, flip a switch, it's on, it's sitting there, standby, doesn't use a lot of energy. So maybe a couple hours, you know, so 64, so, you know, 128 watts a day on the standby if it wasn't being used. But when it's being used, it's not 100% efficient. So if you're providing for this 495 watt load, it's going to consume more than 495 watts from your batteries. Okay? So we're going to talk about that kind of thing in our next episode. You know, you want to have margins. If we require this much, we're not going to develop a battery pack that only provides that much. So we'll talk about that, and we'll talk about other considerations on how we're going to meet these needs. But hopefully I answered the question of, you know, where do you start? And where you start is you're going to determine your power needs, the amount of power, how long you need that power, and then the total that you're going to need, you know, per day. So which is just basically the power times the time gives you those watt hours, which is watts over time. And the watt hours is what we're going to look at when it comes to our battery storage. We're going to want to know how much storage we're going to need and how long we want to provide it. So anyway, as I mentioned earlier, I hope this is beneficial to you. That's the whole objective here, is to provide information and to do it in a way that anybody can understand it. You know, the hardest thing when you're doing, whether it be, you know, converting a gasoline vehicle to electric, doing an off-grid situation, these lights seem to attract all sorts of insects, so I spend time swatting them when I'm down here. But anyway, the objective is to do it at that basic level, a beginner's guide. And you'd be surprised how people don't think of themselves as being beginners and don't understand that big picture and the fundamentals necessary. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope to see you next time.